Kwaba, welcome back. African-American intellectual, writer, and founder of several organizations, Dr. William Edward Burghardt Du Bois organized and convened the first international meeting of the Pan African Congress in Paris, France in February 1919. Political activists and intellectuals attended from 15 countries, 57 delegates in total, a much smaller number than originally planned, as both the United States and Britain refused to issue passports to certain delegates. Garvey's UNIA intended to send anti-lynching crusader Ida B. Wells Barnett and labor trade unionist A. Philip Randolph, but both were denied U.S. passports and British visas, clearly a coordinated obstruction. The fifth Pan African Congress, held in Manchester, England, was convened and organized by Ghana's Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and George Padmore in 1945, a couple of months after the end of the Second European World War. The calls for self-governance, self-determination, and total independence from colonial rule increased as Africans actively struggled to regain themselves and the continent. The Fifth Congress made an unapologetic demand for a total break from colonial rule. Considered the most important of the Congresses, it was attended by 90 delegates, nearly double from the first meeting, and included 33 delegates from the Caribbean and representatives from 26 African countries. The attendees were intellectuals, political activists, journalists, educators, trade unionists, and future leaders of their respective countries. Notables included Frantz Fanon of Algeria and Garvey's wife, Amy Jacques Garvey. The presence of 77-year-old Dr. Du Bois was considered historic, given his role in organizing the first Pan African Congress. He was acknowledged and celebrated as the founder and organizer of the first Congress in 1919. The list of influential attendees and freedom fighters who became presidents of their countries include Kenya's Jomo Kenyatta, Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah, Congo's Patrice Lumumba, Tanzania's Julius Nyerere, Malawi's Hastings Banda. Attended by a powerhouse of dedicated freedom fighters, they agreed to pursue a United States of Africa. Consciousness of the desire to assist in the plight of colonial Africa was also present in the United States of America. The Council of African Affairs, CAA, was founded in 1937 by African-American activists Paul Robeson and Max Yergin. Robeson served as chair and Du Bois as vice chair, and he was also the head of the African Aid Committee. Always able to articulate ideas powerfully, Du Bois dispatched his considerable writing skills and contributed to New Africa, the organization's monthly publication. The CAA was a leading voice of anti-colonialism and Pan-Africanism in the United States. One of the important goals of the organization was to make connections, linking African Americans to all other people of African descent struggling under the yoke of racism, oppression, and colonialism. The council actively lobbied the U.S. federal government and the United Nations regarding global issues of oppression. The organization lent its support to initiatives ranging from independence from colonial rule for India and striking trade unionists in Nigeria to the African National Congress fight against apartheid in South Africa. Given the organization cachet, the CAA had Black mainstream approval as well as liberal intellectual whites. The tireless Du Bois also chaired the Peace Information Center, PIC, an organization that advocated against the proliferation of nuclear weapons following World War II. Specifically, PIC doggedly advocated for the acceptance of the Stockholm Appeal, signed by over 200 million people worldwide. It called for outlawing the use of nuclear weapons, a worry that still dogs modern society a half-century later. For his activism in both the CAA and the PIC, Du Bois was scrutinized by J. Edgar Hoover's FBI and had his passport confiscated during the 1951 McCarthy era, even though he was never charged nor convicted of a crime. Continuing his activism, regardless of the risk, Du Bois sent Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King a message of support during the 1955 Montgomery bus boycott. After finally regaining his passport in 1958, Du Bois went on a world tour that included Russia, China, and countries in Africa. He was well received and celebrated. Other organizations founded and convened conferences, all with the intention of forwarding liberation for colonized Africa and strengthening independent states. The 1958 All-African Peoples Conference was held in Accra, Ghana, and organized by Kwame Nkrumah and John Kale of Uganda. Its purpose was to bring all national African political parties and national trade unions together for mutual cooperation, gaining independence. The coalition of organizations met in 1958, 1960, and 1961, and is perceived as the successor to the Pan African Congress meetings. Prominent leaders from across the continent attended, along with international observers from the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China. Congressman Charles Diggs attended without support from the United States. A serious concern expressed by the attendees was the advent of neocolonialism, defined as the tendency of the nominally freed states to actually remain subjugated to imperialist powers because of economic dependency and other factors. This important concern was expressed in the Economic and Social Resolution, outlining in detail the impediments to true self-determination, and proposed a plan of action to disrupt and circumvent the goals of imperialist neocolonialists. Each of the three All-African Peoples Conferences retained the primary goal of supporting independence struggles and newly independent states. Creating powerful leadership connections, Du Bois mentored countless artisans and intellectuals, including the first president of independent Ghana, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. For Dr. Du Bois, at age 95, longevity was a gift and a curse, as ultimately progress in the United States did not happen swift enough for his liking, prompting him to abandon his native country and accept the invitation of President Kwame Nkrumah to immigrate to Ghana. Without a doubt, W.E.B. Du Bois was a citizen of the world. The measure of his influence is profound, spanning generations and the Black world. This fact is universally acknowledged. In 1963, the African Summit resulted in the formation of the Organization of African Unity, OAU, and the African Liberation Committee, ALC, with signatories from 32 African nations. Both organizations were purposed to defend sovereignty, African sovereignty, and to support freedom movements to that end. President Nkrumah, one of the organizers of the OAU, was a very vocal proponent of the idea of a United States of Africa. Upon his death in 1972, Libyan President Muammar Gaddafi took up the call as an outspoken leader of the Pan Africanist idea, until his assassination in 2011. We'll be right back.